There can be only one McLeod. This is Caleb Jones, and this is Unchained CEO, your own location independent business with location independent laptop-based income to set you free from your horrible soul-crushing 9-to-5 job and escaping your collapsing Western country and moving to a less bad country, or at least setting up an international backup plan and doing all these things for very little money. Today, we have a special guest coming on in about 30 minutes. Talk about him in a minute. A very heavy hitter, a tax expert, international tax expert. My friend Vincenzo, he'll be on in a little bit. Before that, I'm going to talk about or an overview about how you offshore in terms of tax structures and taxes. If you want to save money legally on taxes by moving to a less bad country and avoiding your 20, 30, 40, 50, 60% taxes you're paying now living in a collapsing Western nation. I also have a new website to show you in a minute because we have just finally updated calebjones.com. I'll show you that in a second. And then shortly we will update the other one, the alpha male one. Actually, some questions right now I'll answer because they're on the topic of what we're going to discuss. How can a U.S. citizen reduce their capital gains tax if they get tax residency in Dubai or Paraguay? Do we have to do it in the same year as when the tax year is over? I don't know the answer to that question. Wait for Vincenzo to come on in a half an hour and ask him that, and he should be able to answer that question. I think I know, but I don't want to give you detailed tax information because I am not a tax expert. But we're about to have a tax expert on in a few minutes. What's the best credit card to get for air miles? Well, there's no one best. There's a bunch. Chase Sapphire is really good. Chase Inc. is really good. The Capital One Venture Card is really good. There's a bunch. There's a bunch of them. There's a bunch. You better make sure your credit is good. Make sure your credit's good. I have a lot of those cards, but my credit is good now. I've talked about this for years. I didn't have any. I had no credit, not bad credit, no credit because I didn't borrow money for like 20 years. I was one of these Dave Ramsey's dead is bad people for a long time. I just changed my view on that maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So I had to build back up my credit. So now my credit's good again. So, yeah. Can I structure my business multiple flags so I can stay in the States around 180 plus days a year? No. And lower my tax burden to about 10%? No, you're living in a fantasy world. No, you cannot stay in the United States 180 days a year and lower your tax burden to 10%. No. My business location dependent makes around 300K. What you can do, change your 180 days to 120 days and you can do it. That's what I was doing. Now I do the 35 days thing, but for several years worked great. If you can lower that 180 to 120, you're there. You can go below 10%, dude. Below 10%. I did. But 180, no. You go over 120 in the United States, you're screwed. Sorry. That's the way it goes. This is your punishment for being an American and being a slave to literally the most draconian international tax structures in the entire world, the United States, the land of the free and the home of the brave. Land of the enslaved and home of the insane, United States. Will you be going over the BVI structure? How the BVI structure compares to Dubai, FCE, to Delaware C Corp structure, especially if you're not an expat yet. That's up to Vincenzo. We will see. We will see. Probably. At a minimum, you can ask him. Do you think it's you think it's okay to never own property anywhere? I think you need to own property because of what's coming with the AI stuff. And next week, I have another big thing on AI where I'm just going to wrap this up. The final death blow in terms of this topic of AI. There's a lot of confusion about this and what's going to happen next 5 years. You should own property. You should own gold, real estate, silver, Bitcoin, certain types of companies. Yes, you should own property. Yes, that's critical. You own property. What do you think about setting up Bulgarian companies? 10% tax and 5% dividends, but you've got an EU company with EU banking. It's okay. You have better options. You have better options. A lot better options. But it's okay. But if you have the whole world, why choose okay when you can choose something great? Will your guest address what we'll do if we have an LLC business in the U.S. and want to move the business to another country? Yes. That is exactly what he's going to address. Yes, yes. Now, first, really fast, I'm going to show you the new calebjones.com. Then I'm going to talk about taxes and we'll bring on Vincenzo. Okay, hang on a second. So this has been taking a while, but it's finally ready. If you go to calebjones.com now, it's a lot better than it was. It wasn't bad. I thought it was pretty good. It's just there was too much on there. I wanted to simplify everything. Simplification is the name of the game for me over the next few years. So you go to calebjones.com now. 90 Business Builder, get residency. The blog is there. It's the new blog, not the one you've been using. You all complaining that it was ugly. That was the temporary blog, as I said about 10,000 times. This is the real blog. It looks like this. It looks like the old blogs. There you go. Much, much, much better. You click a blog post. Much more readable. The same great font I used to have my old blogs. I'm bringing all the formatting of my old blogs back. There's the pictures. There's the comments. All good. This one has no comments. Should have picked one of the comments. There you go. You can actually go to the archive, and this will bring up every blog post I have ever written under the old Caleb Jones blog, the Unchained CEO blog, and the Sovereign CEO blog, and Sublime Your Time. Sorted by both category, and you can click here, sort by date. Pretty cool. There it is. Bam. Awesome. Okay, if I go back, all the podcasts, the links are the same. So if you go to calebjones.com/podcast, hang on. Did I click this already? Why is it slow? This just went up, so it might be a little tad slow. The events page, all that shit's there. Huh. Why is this not working? Of course it doesn't work when I show you guys, right? Is it spinning? Oh, they're doing something right now, so there's a little slow. There's the event page. So anyway, calebjones.com. That's you go for the business and Five Flags and Caleb Jones stuff on politics and, libertarianism and all that stuff are written. That's all at this blog here, calebjones.com. Caleb, what about the Alpha Male 2.0 one? That's coming in about another week. There's a lot more content on that one, as you might imagine. So there you go. So that's there for you. Way better. WordPress. Yes, of course, WordPress. Yes. I will not do any other blog other than WordPress. Way, way better. Yes. Again, the blog I was using was temporary. I had so many people like, this sucks. I know it sucks. It sucked. It was the temporary one that I made for free, waiting for this to get ready. All right. That's the first thing. Now, topic. Let's see. Vincenzo will be on in about 15, 20 minutes. And before we get to, I want to overview how taxes work. Taxes now. He's going to talk about taxes and offshoring, specifically in terms of taxes and asset protection, but mostly taxes. I'm going to more overview this because I'm not a tax expert. As I say many times, this is my disclaimer. I'm not an attorney. I'm not an accountant. I'm none of this stuff. I'm just a hardcore Five Flags guy who's been around the block. Matter of fact, today here in Dubai, I spent the entire goddamn day visiting banks in Dubai. It was so fun. I love banks. I love paperwork and bureaucracy and governments. It's great. What was supposed to take 3 hours literally took all day. I just got home. It's 9 p.m. my time. I got home about an hour ago. Been gone all day. It's great. It needed to be done. It's all right. I'm glad I did it, but boy. Ugh. So anyway, taxes. When you are Five Flags, when you move abroad or when you offshore abroad. Irrelevant of all this, there are three factors you have to look at in terms of saving money in tax. Now, you're looking at a guy who makes 7 figures, and I pay about 5% in my total income and taxes, about 5. Not bad. Andrew Henderson pays about 1, but he renounced, and I haven't yet. So here's this works in terms of tax. Number one is, what is your citizenship? Factor number one. What passport do you hold? Factor number one. Factor number two. Where do you spend most of the year? That means more than 182 days a year in most cases, with one set of exceptions called Western countries, which I'll address in a moment. So that's factor two. Where do you spend most of the year? So we just had a question. Can I spend most of the year in the United States and cut my taxes down to 10%? No, because you spend most of the year in the collapsing United States, which Americans pay the highest taxes in the history of the world. Modern day Americans, go read my new blog. Go to my new blog, calebjones.com, and search in the little search bar. Works great now. It's awesome. Go search Americans' highest taxes and read that article. Okay. So, by the way, I wrote that article because when I used to say on my blogs and my other stuff that Americans pay the highest tax history, all these Americans say, that's not true. It's the Europeans who pay more taxes than us. That's bullshit. I had to finally write that article with links and data and numbers to show you no Americans do. Because you pay metro taxes, county taxes, state taxes, federal taxes. Most countries don't have States and a federal government and counties and cities, all of which charge them tax. Dubai doesn't have that problem. Most countries, Paraguay doesn't have that problem. You don't have 57 states in Paraguay. So there you go. So anyway, where do you spend most of the time? Number two, fact number two. Fact number three, where is your business housed? Your business entity and your checking accounts. So your business entity and then your linked checking accounts under that entity. Okay. So someone just asked about Bulgaria. If you have a LLC or the equivalent in Bulgaria and a bank account in Bulgaria, that's going to be taxed at Bulgarian tax rates for the corporate tax, if any. You can get 0% corporate tax. You get very low corporate tax. You can pay 0% corporate tax based on where you spend most of the year. So, for example, well, let's rewind. So those are the three factors to look at. Where is my citizenship, not residency, citizenship? Where do I spend most of the year? Where is my business housed? All right. Now, if you're an American, you're fucked. Even if you leave America, you have to pay some tax. If you make more than about $130,000 a year, 135 is the number, excuse me. Foreign earned income exclusion for 2024 is 135,000. If you're an American and you make under 135,000, you're golden. You can reduce your taxes to literally zero by moving out of the country and staying a max of either 35 or 120 days. I have several videos on this channel how to do that. On the YouTube channel, go watch if you like. Okay. If you make more than 135, some of us make multiples of 135K a year, then you're going to pay some tax. Now, I pay about 5%. Is that better than what I used to, the typical Americans? And what I used to pay, typical Americans paying 51 to 70%. Yeah, it's a little better. 5% is a little better. I'd like it a little lower, but I'll deal. Okay. If you are in any other country other than Eritrea, I don't think any of you are from Eritrea, then if you leave your country, possibly pay an exit tax if you're from a collapsing Western country. So if you're a Canadian, you're going to pay an exit tax, punishment for being Canadian. If you're German, you're going to pay an exit tax. If you're Australian, you might have to pay an exit tax. If unless you have very little money or no money, they won't. It's usually based on their net worth and things like that. You're going to pay a fucking exit tax, but it's a one-time tax and it sucks, but it's worth it because then after that, you pay no taxes for the rest of your life to that country. So you're lucky. Unlike Americans, you're lucky. There are very few Americans here in Dubai. Most people I know who are in Dubai are from, Eastern European, Western European, Russia, places like that. And they're so lucky. They just, they're Germans who come here. They're paying 45% taxes and they just move here and they pay zero. Awesome. Good for you. You're lucky. God loves you because you weren't born in America. Good for you. So then, where do you spend most of the year? The magic number in most cases is 183 days because that's 6 months. You spend more than 82, excuse me, what did I say? 186? 182. 182, 183, depends the country. You spend more than that, you may incur a tax if it is a standard tax country. Even in good countries that I like Colombia and Mexico, you spend more than 183 days in either of those countries, you will pay them or a tax. Now, this gets to the question, well, how do they know how do they know what you make? How can they enforce this if your accounts are from some other country, how they enforce it? These get into dicey questions that I cannot discuss publicly. You make your own decisions. I follow the law. Matter of fact, a long conversation with my son about this a few weeks ago. Well, how do they know? And they know what they know I make is based on what I tell them. And, you make your own decisions how you want to run your life. But legally, technically speaking, you're supposed to declare all the money you make, and you're going to pay a tax if you spend more than 180 to 103 days in that country. Okay, if it's a standard tax country. Now, there are two types of countries we have to worry about this. One is zero tax countries like here in Dubai. There's no taxes here. So if you move to Dubai and you spend most of the year here, you will pay zero tax. Cool. So if you come from a country where you are not an American, you come from you spend most of the time here in Dubai, great, probably pay no tax, depending on how much money you make and things like that. All right, nice. Then there are territorial tax countries, which I've talked about a lot. My favorite is Paraguay. Billy and I are putting on an event. We're announcing that either today or tomorrow in Uruguay. That's another territorial tax country. The way territorial tax countries work is if your income comes from outside the country, so from another business and a checking account outside of that country. So if you move to Paraguay and spend all year in Paraguay, but all your income comes from internet location independent alpha tubular business we talk about here, from a checking account that is outside of Paraguay, you pay zero tax. Awesome. Very cool. So if you house your country in a country where that country charges you zero corporate tax, The income comes in, you pay zero corporate tax, you live in a zero tax country like Dubai or a territorial tax country like Paraguay, you pay zero tax on your income tax. You're golden. And you're not an American. Now, if you're an American and you make under 135,000 a year and you will stay out of America for most of the year, you're exempt, still pay zero. If you're an American, you spend a lot more time in the United States, like the guy just asked, wants to spend 180 days, sorry, you're going to pay more. Or if you make more than 135, you're going to pay a tax on top of that. There are ways to reduce that, which I'm doing off beyond the scope of this particular session, unless Vincenzo wants to talk about that in a few minutes. Now, what are the exceptions to these rules? There's one big exception, and that is if you are from a Western country or you're attempting to move to a Western country. Western countries are collapsing and they suck. So the 183-day rule does not apply to many Western countries. Many countries in Europe, and certainly countries, the top list is Australia, will tax your ass if you spend any time there. So you could spend less than 6 months a year in a place like Australia, and they will tax your ass. Here's my story. I've told this story before. Many, many years, I'm picking on Australia, but this is top of the list for me. But there are a lot of the countries that do this. In a Western country, that's why it's so stupid for Americans to move to Western Europe or Canadians to move to Australia. What the fuck? You're jumping out of one frying pan into another frying pan. I don't get what the hell you're doing. Well, I'm scared. I want to practice. What the fuck? Anyway, so many, 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 many years ago, before I knew what the hell I was doing, and before I learned the world, a little more international savvy, I considered moving to Australia. No, but I did. I considered moving to Australia. This is a long time ago. I didn't know what I was doing back then, before I learned. And so I visited Australia several times. I was speaking to Australian tax attorneys and accountants and government officials. And I basically said, okay, if I live here, 6 months a year, you're going to tax me? Oh, yes, we're going to tax your ass. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. We're Australia. We're going to tax the fuck out of you. I said, okay, 6 months a year. I get that. Okay, so what if I say 5 months a year? Like most other countries on earth, then you won't tax me, right? Oh, no, we can still tax you. What? Oh, yes, sir. Yes, mate. We'll still tax you, mate. Okay, what if I stay 4 months? What if I stay, and I kept going. What if I stay 3 months? And I got it down to 2 months. What if I stay here just 2 months a year? Because one of my plans was I could live in Southeast Asia. And when it got too hot in the summer, I could pop down to Melbourne or Hobart, spend 2 months down there, get a boat down there, and it'd be great. Because Australia is very beautiful. Parts of it are anyway. And Australians are pretty cool. I like Australians. I hate your government. But anyway, they said, no, we're going to tax you. I said, what? They said, well, it's not 100% guaranteed, but yes, if we see you keep coming into our country every year and staying for 2 months, yes, we can and we will, and we have. We will tax your ass at 43% of your worldwide fucking income for the 2 months that you stay in our country. I said, fuck you, Australia. Take the Sydney Opera House and shove it up your kangaroo ass. You're insane and you're authoritarian. Now, this was just a few years before the pandemic, before the entire world saw how authoritarian and insane Australia really is. I saw that several years prior. So when this crazy shit happened during the pandemic with Australia, everyone was shocked. All these Americans like, oh my God, look what they're doing. I'm like, I'm not shocked at all. They're crazy over there. The government's insane. And I love Australians. It's a crime. If you don't vote, it's a crime. Oh, kill me. So if you are going to fuck around by living in a Western country, this 183-day rule may not apply. They may be dickheads like the Australian government and say that, no, you spend any time here at all, we're going to tax you at worldwide income rates, blah, blah, blah. You'll notice I haven't been, by the way, I haven't been back to Australia since then. Now, a lot of that's because of the pandemic, but honestly, I haven't been back. I have this bitterness, not about Australians, although you fuckers voted for your government just like my dumb fellow Americans voted for their stupid government, so it's your fault. But anyway, I'm serious. Billy and I were talking about doing a big Australian thing this year in 2024. I went, you know what? No. We'll get Australia at some point because, fuck them. Again, fuck your government. Unless you like your government, then fuck you too. Anyway, hang on a second. Someone is saying the UK is 90 days a year to be a tax resident. There you go. 3 months to the UK. So 91 days or 9 days, they're going to tax you at UK tax rates of the highest in the world. Not as bad as America, but some of the highest in the world for those 3 months. Good luck to you. So this is why you need to avoid the collapsing Western world, as I've only been saying for 7-8 years now. So that's the basic structure and how it works. What is your citizenship? Where do you spend most of the year? Hopefully it's a non-Western country. Wink, wink, hint, hint. Where do you base your business? So the perfect structure is you're not an American, and if you are an American, you're and then you set up your corporation in a country that charges you either low corporate tax or zero corporate tax. Then you live in a country that is either zero tax, like Dubai, Qatar, there's a few of them, or a country that is territorial tax, like Paraguay, Uruguay, where all your money comes from outside the country. And then you pay literally zero tax. Now, if you make a lot of money, you might pay 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7%, maybe up to 10%. If you make a lot of money, still better than paying 50, 40, 30, 60, 70, which is what most Westerners pay at the end of the year when they add all that bullshit up. Not bad. Like I said, I pay about 5. I'd like it to be 4. My objective has always been 4. My financial plan plans for 15, just in case, we're entering in a collapsing world here. So who knows? So there you go. Australia is all about the domicile test. Wrong. That's not correct. I went through all that with them. As long as you do not establish a permanent home there, they will not tax you. It's not time-based. Incorrect. They can still tax you on, for example, if they see you're flying into the same city and flying out of the same city, even if it is not domicile, they can and still will tax you, and they've done it to other people. So that is incorrect. That is what I thought. That is more about, that's New Zealand. New Zealand has the 160-day, and it's a domicile test, and it's a little more rational, but no, that is incorrect. You don't believe me? Do some research. It's not. They can and they will tax you, irrelevant of domicile status. And so that's why I said to Australia, this is one of the most insane tax policies I've seen in my entire life. And I've seen a lot all over the world. You want international business to come in and contribute to your economy, and you're going to spit in their face like this? I'll just go to Dubai where they want me there, and they don't charge me anything. How about that? How you like them? Let's see. Vincenzo will be joining us in a few minutes. What else do I say about that before he comes on here? A few more things I want to say, but I'll wait till he gets here. Let me see if there are any questions on the topic of taxes that I did not cover. Let's see. Let's see here. Is it possible to stay in a medium tax country like Poland and reduce your taxes while incorporating offshore, and how? I'm an online teacher. Yes, you can save some money. You're not going to get your taxes down to 5% like me, but you'll save a little. Yes, you can save some. Sure. What websites or resources are useful to get a good contact for incorporating a company? Too general a question. Where? How? Why? Which country? As a sole entrepreneur doing most of the work, is it possible to set up a company offshore, or does it need employees? It does not need employees. According to Five Flags rules, can I have a passport in a country that I spend 4 to 5 months a year in? Yeah, technically yes, because it's not most of the year. So yes, that's a gray area for Five Flags, but technically the answer is yes. So you don't want a passport that in your country A, is where you're domiciled, your primary residence. That means you're going to be there more than 6 months a year. So 4 or 5 months, you're probably okay. Probably, honestly, at some point in the future, I will have a Paraguay passport. I just see that happening in my future. It might be 5-10 years from now, but I'm going to have it, even if I spend half the year there. So, could fudge the stuff a little bit. Let's see here. Can I hire you for a 10 to 15 minute consultation? You cannot. You can't hire me unless you're willing to spend $5,000. I'm sorry. Someone's asking a girl question. I do not discuss that on these live streams. Go to the other channel. I'll be there on Wednesday. You can ask me all the girl questions you want. Canadian with 100K online business. Cool. But with a young kid here, separated from mom. Okay. Yeah, I understand. How to want to both be a parent, father, and be free from a business from tax perspective. I've done a podcast on that topic. There's no easy answer. The least bad scenario is that you spend several months a year abroad setting up your Five Flags, setting up your international stuff. And as soon as that kid turns 18, you get the hell out of there. That's kind of what I did. with my kids. So when my kids were teenagers, I was running around the planet. I was still there for them most of the year in the United States. I was running, getting everything ready, doing all my research, figuring out where I wanted to move, where I didn't want to move. This Australia thing, I did that when my kids were teenagers. And the split second, my last kid was, I'm out the fucking door. I was like, goodbye. So something like that. Americans in Mexico regularly audited by Mexican government. Yes, that's correct. Don't lie in your taxes. Don't do it. Just don't do it. I mean, Andrew Henderson talks about this. He's right. Don't lie in your taxes. Don't do that. I know it's tempting. Just don't. I don't. I'm a public figure, so I really don't. But even if I wasn't, I wouldn't. I don't want to have to worry about this. Are the floods still bad over there in Dubai? No, that was just literally one day. It rained again, but it didn't flood. I agree. Don't live in the West. Australia has fallen. Yes, it's not even the tax rates and so much cost of living. Correct. And your debt, your consumer debt is insane over there. Yes. Yes, correct. If you had a European passport and decided to go live in another country, would you try to get a different passport as a backup? Yes. 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 Get as many passports, not as many passports as you can. You should have at least 2 passports. 3 is better, but that's kind of an extremist. If you have the opportunity to get a second passport, you should do it always. Period. End of story. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. There's no reason not to get another passport. Get one. I'm getting 2 more. I really can't talk about publicly where I'm doing this. I'm not supposed to talk about this publicly, but by the end of this year and then next year, I'm going to get 2 more. Then I'll have 3. Then I'll have 2 again because one's going away. F living in the UK. Women are meh and taxes are worse. There's shitty weather. Yes, agree pretty much on everything you just said. Do the UAE give a residency card, or do they also have to put a visa in your passport? They do both. They put a pink page in your passport, which is your entry visa, and then you get a residency card. They do both. I want to take residency, but not any of that. Put visa on my passport. Why? Who cares? The United States is collapsing. Correct. I've been saying that only for about 12 years. Mm-hmm. If I decide to go to Paraguay, do you recommend setting up a country there and receiving money in that company? No, unless you have very specific plans there, because then you'll pay their tax. However, Paraguay corporate tax is some of the lowest in the world. So no, if you already have income coming from somewhere else, why would you set up a corporation? Now I have big plans for Paraguay. There's a lot of things we're doing. I'm building a whole life down there, but you don't need to. Now, if you want to make that one of your home bases, make that your home base and really build a thing. You build infrastructure down there and maybe get a passport down there. Sure. But most people aren't going to worry about this. Most people are going to have your Alpha 2.0 location independent business, base it in some bank and company outside of Paraguay, pay your 0% tax, which means you pay no tax. Will this setup work? Initial head up on a BVI hedge fund? Ask those questions when Vincenzo comes on. I can't ask those questions. Doesn't suck to live in a third world country because you have to. No, you don't have to work. You don't have to live in any country if you have location dependent income. Your question makes no sense. If you have location dependent income, you live anywhere you want. Joshua Hall, the nomad consultant, your son. I just got recommended one of his YouTube videos. That's him. That's my son. That's Josh. Josh will be on this live stream in about 3 weeks. Buy American passport. I do the same thing. Cool. Okay, hang on. Make sure everything's good here. All right. If I live in Southeast Asia, Philippines, Vietnam, Indonesia for more than 6 months a year, by doing visa extensions run, would I need to pay taxes there? Each country is different. You should do the research on those countries. Maybe. Philippines, I don't know. Vietnam, I think you do. And Indonesia, I think so if you're not in a free zone like Bali. Bali, no. Outside of Bali, not sure. Caleb, get your Italian passport first. But I'm working on many different passports, not just that one. If you take another passport, you might lose your Italian citizenship claim. No. But that's what I'm doing. Because I believe if I live in Paraguay but base my company in Portugal, I will still pay taxes in Portugal. You will pay a corporate tax in Portugal, yes. So get your company out of Portugal and put it in BVI or put it in Hong Kong, or you have so many other options. Don't leave any company in Western Europe. I know a lot of you love Portugal. I get it. Portugal is still in Western Europe, and Western Europe sucks. You think I would ever start a business, a corporation in any Western European country? Are you insane? No. I live in Canada full-time as a permanent resident, but I have a passport from another country with zero tax on capital gains. If I invest in crypto, will Canada tax me on my gains? Don't know. My guess is yes. If you're a permanent resident there, my guess is yes, but I don't know. It's a good question. Don't know. Vincenzo, can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me and see me? Cool. I'm going to bring Vincenzo on in like 1 minute. Let me finish up these questions really quick here. Any opinion on Paseo 55 in Paraguay as a place to live? There are better places. Most extroverted country in the world. There's a bunch that tie for that. South Korea, Philippines, Italy. There's a bunch. Okay. Let me bring on Vincenzo. Oh, he's stepped away from his desk. Paseo 55. Behind the La Galleria. No, I love that place. That's not called Paseo 55. Is that the name of the street? That's one of the best places to live, but you're going to spend more money there. Do you think Florida and Texas or the Carolinas, other red states are still worth living, or better just leave the country? Go watch my video on my YouTube channel about something like moving to Texas won't save you, or moving out of California won't save you. An entire video on how dumb it is to move from California to Texas or Florida and say, oh, good, everything's good now. And I give you, not my opinion, stats, facts about how left-wing Texas and Florida is and are becoming. No, that is a terrible idea. Get out of the United States. Here's the only excuse I will listen to. One of you already gave me this. The only excuse for you not leaving your collapsing Western country is you have a small child, not a grown child. You have a small child and you're no longer with baby mama. And now you want to be a dad, but you can't get baby mama to leave with you. 99% of you do not have that scenario, so you don't have that excuse. 1% of you have that scenario. You have a valid excuse. The rest of you don't. If you're going to move. Moving across the country is a pain in the ass. Add a 5% complexity of that and move to another country. Instead of moving across the country to fucking Texas, where Biden lost by go watch that video. I'll give you the stats. Biden lost by an inch in Texas. People think Texas is right wing. No, it's not. No, it's not. Neither is Florida. Shit, dude. Can you transfer your credit history to another country? No, you can't. You have to rebuild it in a new country. I'm doing that myself in Paraguay. Vincenzo, give me a thumbs up whenever you're ready. I'll bring you on. You cool? All right. Hang on a moment. How you doing?
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey. Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. Let me turn my volume down a little bit. So let me introduce you, and then we'll talk. So Vincenzo is, at least in my opinion, one of the best tax advisors in the entire Five Flags international space.
Thank you.
I've been working with him intensely for about a year, and then somewhat for about 3 years before that. I actually met him through. Yeah. Did I meet you through Andrew Henderson? I think I did. No, yeah, yep. That's right. He's a Five Flags guy. He's an international guy. He has investments all over the world. He lives abroad. You live in Brazil? But you're from the U.S.?
I'm from Canada? New York. I'm from New York.
New York. That's right. That's right. Okay. Right. But you got real estate. You got stuff all over the place, right?
Stuff in, Colombia, Brazil. I mean, a lot of, the U.S. I mean, I've sort of been investing internationally for years. Ever since I've done this, which has been 12 years ago.
Yeah, so you got started well before I did. So Vincenzo, you're about to find out how much of a genius he is and how good he is this stuff. And the challenge with Vincenzo, just so you know, we might have already had some questions. I get questions on really specific tax stuff. I'm like, I don't know. Right. Wait for Vincenzo to come on and he'll answer those questions. So today I'm going to hand this over to Vincenzo. Today we're going to talk about specifically BVI. This is for Americans mostly, correct?
Correct. But I'm happy to, we'll talk mostly about, like American, but, BVI and the US LLC, I mean, are also good for non-Americans. I'm also happy to sort of go into that. And
so here's Well, you're coming back in a few weeks, and we'll hit
Correct.
non-Americans then too. So
That's
those
true.
of you, yeah. So here's how we're going to do this. We're going to address mostly Americans today, but we're going to address non-Americans too. We'll answer questions and all that stuff. Then we'll have Vincenzo come back in a few weeks, and then we'll pivot and we'll address mostly those of you who are not Americans. We have a whole different strategy for you guys, right? Yeah. And that way it kind of works because, just so you guys know, it's about a 50-50 split in this audience. About half of you have American citizenship, even if you live abroad. The other half of you are non-Americans. That way you're hitting both sides. But we'll still address non-Americans as best we can here. Is there anything else you want to say before you get started?
No, not really.
All right. Do you have slides or anything, or just want to talk?
I have slides.
You have slides. So if you click, see at the bottom it says present.
Yeah, I saw that. Let's see.
All right.
Let me just do this. Let's go on this.
This is going to be awesome. I love listening to Vincenzo talk.
Yeah.
I do. I get very excited. Like, okay. And I'm taking notes. I'm like, okay. Oh, really? Okay. Yeah.
Let's see. Present. Share screen.
Really quick while he's doing that, the way credit works when you move to another country is that you start at 0 credit in the new country. So the way it works is, if you have more money, this is easier. I did this in Dubai. You can take a bunch of money and drop it in a checking account and let it sit there for a year or two. And then they'll start giving you credit cards and things like that, and car loans. And you just build usually it takes about 2 years in other countries to build your credit up to a point. It doesn't take that long. So, but yeah, you do kind of start from 0 when you move to a country credit wise. So yes, just how it works. As a non-American, can I open an LLC S election in the USA and not pay taxes there? Yes, you can. We'll address that. Well, maybe we'll address a little bit of that. If you want, I can. You want me to add that, or you want to wait? I can add that to the stage right now, or I can wait. I see it on my screen.
Did you see? Now? Yeah. Do you see this? The slides?
Yeah. Let me pull them up.
Yeah. Is
that right?
Yeah, that works.
Cool. All right, go. I might interrupt you with questions in case.
Yeah, please. I'm totally open to interrupting.
Yeah, I know you are. You're a casual guy.
I like the sort of facilitating the conversation and breaking it up. So feel free to add in or chime in, etc.
Sure.
Right. So, again, I mean, looking at British Virgin Islands, looking at other offshore structures, primarily for U.S. citizens, but we'll just talk a lot about some of these options. I think. The biggest thing to note is really that offshore structuring really is available to anybody, right? It's not just this sort of notion of the Googles and the Apples of the world, are doing this, but obviously a lot of high net worth or ultra high net worth individuals are doing it, and I think part of my mission is to bring this to the global entrepreneur, right? That doesn't necessarily have to be worth millions or tens of millions of dollars, because a lot of these concepts. Really available to everyone, right? Obviously, if they qualify, and that's something that we'll go into, but it's not just for sort of these big corporations and whole ultra high net worth individuals.
That's my entire point here, and that's the entire audience, or most of the audience, is normal people who do this want to be more free.
Yeah, and again, what is the point here, right? I mean, of course, saving for the future, building up that nest egg, with that is sort of this tax optimization. And also asset protection, right? And I mean, there's a lot of kind of bad people out there that sue to just sue, or sue because it's actually a business model of theirs. And so it is important to be aware of asset protection. And again, it comes back to what your business structure is, the jurisdiction it's in, your tax compliance and banking and so forth. And so here you see that there's a lot of choices, right? I mean, we'll go into BVI, but there's a list, of course, like the Caribbean, Cayman, Bahamas, Panama, Belize, Nevis. If you're in Europe or you're European based, places like Luxembourg and particularly Malta and Cyprus have come up more recently. Estonia, Bulgaria.
Now, specifically, you're talking about places to base a company, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. And just so you know, in the audience, BVI, if you didn't know, means British Virgin Islands. It's an island nation owned by England in the Caribbean. So this list is places you could potentially have a company, but you could have it in other places. But yeah,
that's true.
It's not all inclusive.
To give a little bit of background on me, I'm a CPA, right? That means certified public accountant from New York. I used to work at the Big Four and PricewaterhouseCoopers, and sort of obviously was in that rat race, doing very well from a salary perspective, but also paying a lot of taxes. Then 12 years ago, moved out to lived in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and that's when I started Online Tax Man. And it was really just, at least initially, really just tax preparation services, mostly for Americans living abroad. This is kind of when the whole digital nomad thing really first started coming out. And then since then, obviously we still have Online Tax Man, but really went to what's known as GEA, which is Global Expat Advisors, right? Which is our company that focuses on these sort of structures, right? And whether it's these foreign offshore structures in the British Virgin Islands or elsewhere, foreign trusts, etc. We have another company, Global or Expat Financial Solutions, that helps expats on the investing side. And so, built 3 businesses, have again advised hundreds of entrepreneurs, and written articles appearing in Forbes and CNBC, and sort of a member of some of these like entrepreneur organization and Forbes and so forth. So
Vincenzo is like me. He is very busy. You're lucky to have him here. Trust me. He's a busy guy.
I really appreciate that. It's true. But, again, so to go into sort of this, I mean, what the BVI, I mean, obviously it's a beautiful place, as you can see, beaches and so forth, but is it the best option? And what is the options here, right? And what are the options? And so I like to look at it, to start out as sort of like, U.S. based versus offshore. And so U.S. based, you have 3 different types of structures. You have an LLC, a C Corp, and an S Corp. I think the big thing about the U.S. is it's simple, right? And what I mean by that is it's really easy to open up a company there, right? Again, when you look around the world, it's probably one of the easiest places.
Yep.
To open up a company, to open up a bank account.
Yep.
And so for doing business, it's easy, it's simple. And it's also great, as I sort of mentioned, and Caleb, to your point, we'll go into this another presentation in a few weeks, but it is great for non-US people, right? Non-American people that have no US presence. An LLC is, right? And what I mean by no US presence is no US employees, no US offices, no US warehouses. And then also the S Corp is great for US owners. So again, there's people that you're American, maybe you're based in the US, and you have US employees, you have an office, you have a warehouse, maybe you have like a business on, Amazon or drop shipping or whatever, you have US presence, then, an S Corp could be really good for you. So that's sort of the US based stuff. And then we go into offshore. And listen, with offshore, there is an added layer of complexity, right? And what I mean by that is, if you're American, you have to file in the US. You also have to make sure that you're maintaining your sort of local business registration locally. And it's complex, and some jurisdictions are easier than others. Hong Kong requires audit. This is actually one of the reasons why we recommend BVI, is because it's actually one of the least complex of those offshore companies, jurisdictions. Again, but it's really optimal for U.S. owners. Even for some non-U.S. owners, BVI is even better than the U.S. Via filing requirements. And so just want to sort of lay out the difference.
So really quick to confirm, to clarify, in case you guys didn't catch this. So correct me if I'm wrong. If you're not an American You don't have an American passport or citizenship. You have no employees, no assets, no nothing in the United States. You can get a U.S. LLC and pay zero tax, right?
Correct.
Okay. So then if you are American, you look at the offshore stuff, and then there's two options on there. Well, maybe I don't want to jump ahead if you're going to get to how that works. So one owns the other.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get into that for sure. But yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's good to clarify. Non-American, US LLC, no US presence.
Right. So just be aware, you hear us Americans scream and bitch about how horrible the taxes are, but that's for Americans. If you're not an American, and we'll talk, Vincenzo's right. When he comes back, we'll talk more great detail about that. But if you're not an American, you don't pay any taxes as an American shareholder in as a non-American shareholder in an American LLC.
That's correct. Yeah, I mean, the U.S. is basically one of the biggest fiscal paradises in the world for non-Americans.
For non-Americans, yeah,
correct.
It's so ironic.
It's crazy. Yeah, no, I mean, that's they try to attract foreign investment. That's
right.
It's an incentive,
which is smart.
Yeah, smart. It's ironic, but smart.
Yeah, it's ironic in the case of USA.
Yeah. So again, offshore business structure. So what is the ideal structure for a U.S. citizen that wants to own an offshore company, right? And so really, what are the benefits? You would get a reduced tax rate of 10.5%. So normally we have a U.S. C Corp that owns an offshore company, it's 21%. But if you get if you do this setup, you essentially half that tax rate to 10.5%.
And is that the corporate tax rate?
Correct. That's the corporate tax rate.
Okay. So instead of paying a 21 or higher tax rate, you'd pay half that, which is 10.5. You get
exactly.
a 50%. You slash your corporate tax rate, which you can't get out of even with foreign earned income, in half.
Yeah. Again, to my previous point, asset protection, right? And I'll just do a little side piece on asset protection. I'll give a great example. I had a client once, and he had a medical practice, and he was retiring, and he moved all of his assets offshore, set up something in Belize, trust, whatever. And basically then, right after he retired, somebody sued him, right? And, it's one of these sort of like ambulance chasing situations, if you will, or whatever, where, you have a lawyer that, somebody goes to a lawyer. Okay, I think you have a case. The lawyer is going to take a third of whatever he wins suing the person, so that the plaintiff, the person that's suing, doesn't have to pay the lawyer. The lawyer just gets a third of the winnings because the lawyer is so confident about the case. What ended up happening once they, served the papers and understood that the majority of the net worth of the doctor was outside the United States, the case was dropped, right?
Yeah.
And the reason is because, now the lawyer who essentially is paying all these out-of-pocket costs because they think they're going to recover a third of the winnings looks at it and says, well, now I have to go and engage a lawyer and Belize and,
right.
And go to Belize and this and that. And then all of a sudden it's not worth it. And so that's why, again, with these foreign jurisdictions, it really is, a turnoff. I mean, you're just, it is a way for people to, again, not sue you because they know that they're, they don't want to go, a money chase.
Can you comment very briefly, if you can't, that's fine, on divorce? Because most of the audience is men. We have a lot of married guys in the audience, married Americans and married non-Americans. Can you comment on that? Protecting yourself?
Yeah. Again, I think it's the same scenario. I think you need to do, any of this stuff you have to do it before any type of like litigation or whatnot, right?
Before. Correct.
Yeah.
Before this happens, before you get divorced,
this happens, whether
that's
it's,
right.
Divorce papers being served or whatever, or
right.
This and that, you have to really do it before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the biggest comment. And then finally, the benefits. Again, your salary could be excluded under the foreign earned income exclusion. Then you actually would not be subject to like any sort of Social Security self-employment tax. So just to sort of back up, foreign earned income exclusion, if you're an American person living abroad, you are allowed to take $120,000 as a salary from either a U.S. company or foreign company, wherever, because you are physically living abroad, you're doing the work from abroad. And so in this scenario, you're not only getting the 120K tax-free from income tax, but because you're employed by a non-U.S. company, you're also not paying Social Security tax, so it's like 15%.
Right. Payroll.
So, yeah, payroll taxes, exactly. So, off the bat, you set up a structure like this, you're saving roughly $18,000, right? Because 15% of the 120K foreign earned income exclusion is 18 grand.
Right.
So
just the first year.
Just the first year, right?
Every
So
year thereafter.
Yeah. So in a lot of ways, the amount of benefits you realize in just 1 year, really outweighs a lot of the, the costs and just, the process. So
this was the same logic I used for this Dubai stuff. Is I knew there would be a cost. It's several $1,000s, but if I save not just the first year, but then every year thereafter, I've said this before, because Dubai, you have to renew your corporation every year, and it's like 3,000, 4,000 US. I would pay triple that with the amount of money I save. I don't care how much it costs.
Yeah,
because I'm saving way more than that. So yeah,
way more. Yeah, I mean, and this is this is across the board what we've been doing for people. Obviously, is just being able to demonstrate the benefit of doing it, and the savings. So just to sort of go a little bit into really what is the structure, right? So it's a three corporation structure, three entity structure, let's say. It's a Wyoming C Corp that owns a BVI corporation, and then the BVI corporation owns a Wyoming LLC. And so really the C Corp is essentially a holding company, right? There's not a lot of movement in the C Corp. You maybe make investments via the C Corp, and ultimately, if you're going to take a dividend out of the structure, you take it through the C Corp. But the Wyoming C Corp really is a holding company. And so then the BVI company and the Wyoming LLC are essentially the operating companies, right? The BVI company is, where you're advertising sort of to the world. This is, you're doing business with this company. It's located in the BVI. All the contracts, all the, if you have like policies on your website, et cetera, it's all via this BVI company. And then you do have a Wyoming LLC underneath that is essentially for banking purposes, right? So, we recommend doing a bank account for the BVI company, but the Wyoming LLC also serves as sort of a banking entity for potentially like having, credit card transactions like sales, or, if you're getting paid.
PayPal, Stripe.
Yeah, PayPal, exactly. So that's the structure. So let's sort of go into, I think, again, it really is sort of, hey, what's the proof in the pudding? Or, let's show a scenario of, hey, this is how much money we could save you. So to keep it super simple, we have a single member LLC, right? It's a U.S. owner. Of course, if it was a single member LLC owned by a non-U.S. person, like we said, it would be zero tax. But you're a U.S. person. You have a net profit of 140K, right? In this scenario, again, that 140K is subject to this 15.3% self-employment tax or payroll tax, et cetera, right? So sort of to allude to what we previously discussed, you're going to pay roughly 21 grand just to Social Security. And then on top of that, again, we're going to assume that the person has a foreign earned income exclusion, et cetera. So that's, in this case, I'm going to say the foreign earned income exclusion is 110K. It's technically 120, but let's say if the person was in the States a little bit, it's 110K. It doesn't matter. The point is that, anything above the foreign earned income exclusion does get subject to income tax in this case. the income tax at 21% or 28% is $8,400. So again, single member LLC, person living abroad, but they have a U.S. entity. They're paying roughly 30 grand in tax. Okay, now let's say we migrated this to this foreign structure. Okay, under this foreign structure, in this case they take $100K salary. Again, that's not subject to any type of income tax, foreign income exclusion. Not subject to any Social Security or Medicare taxes in the previous example. As I showed before, it would be a 10.5% corporate tax rate, right, on that 40K profit, right? Because it's 140K net profit minus 100K salary. So now in this scenario, 40K profit, you have to pay the 10.5% tax. And then in this case, I put a 15% sort of dividend tax, meaning, okay, let's say you have 40K left in the company. You're faced with a little bit of a decision tree. You could take that 40K out, that 40K left profit as a dividend, and then you're taxed an additional 15, or you could leave it in the company and then you're really only taxed at that 10.5% tax rate for the corporate level.
So let me cover that really fast, because that's a really important point. A lot of people don't understand it. It took me a while to get this as well. So you, in a C Corp structure, which is kind of what this is, you only, unlike S Corp, and again, Vincenzo, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Whatever you pull out in a C Corp structure, you only pay taxes what you pull out in that calendar year. So if you make $1 million and you don't take that as a salary and you just leave that in the corporate structure, you leave it in there as of December 31st, you pay zero tax because you haven't used the money. It's just sitting there.
Right.
Okay,
well, you pay
so
zero personal tax. You would still pay that 10.5% reduced guilty tax.
Excuse me.
Right?
Okay. So all right. So you'd pay, see, I still don't get this. All right. So you'd pay the 10.5.
Correct.
But that's it. You wouldn't pay anything else. You pay no personal
That's
tax.
it. That's
okay. So then you could pay the 10.5 and then have investments and keep the investments in the C Corp.
Correct.
Forever.
That's correct.
For as long as you want, it pays no tax. Okay.
Right. And so if you look at this, again, 20, you're looking at 20K tax, but really it could be more. I mean, to your point, if you didn't take that money, that 40K.
That's worst case scenario, you've saved
10. That's worst case scenario. Yeah, exactly.
That's worst case scenario. Right.
Worst case scenario, you're saving 20K.
Worst case scenario, saying 20K. Right. Now, can I ask a question? Why would you not just say 100? Oh, I think I answered my question. You couldn't say 140K salary, right? You have to take some as profit, or it's going to get flagged. Is that why?
Yeah, no, I mean, because you're taking sort of, no, because you wouldn't take the full 100K because it's actually less tax to take over the 120 foreign income exclusion.
Oh, because we're over the 120. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Then it'd be better to take it as a dividend than salary.
Right. Okay. As a dividend. All right. All right. So the GIL, what's the GILTI rate? Is that the dividend?
That's guilty is the 10.5%.
That is, oh, that's the 10.5% realized. Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So again, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here. Like I sort of said, hey, you could potentially keep, that profit in the company and not take it out as a dividend. Again, then rather than 20K, it'd be roughly, 25K, right, of savings. Right. So I mean, this is sort of income.
Right.
Worst case scenario, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So here's some important considerations, because obviously, we try to simplify this for everyone to understand. I know this is a lot of, information and whatnot, but I want to put some other considerations that are important here. One is, of course, you have to file Form 5471, which is a form where you report your foreign entity, right? The BVI company in this case. Mm-hmm. I will say this, we set up these structures, but when we set them up, we want to make sure that everyone is fully 100% in compliant, right? This is not a gate of like, hide and go seek. It's a gate of show and tell. So you're doing it, this is completely legal, but with that, there are these filing requirements. And, I want to say
you're declaring everything. You're not hiding anything from the government.
You're not hiding
what you're doing, and then you're covered. Right.
Correct. Exactly. Transfer pricing issues, right? Some people will say, oh, this sounds awesome, but I have like 2 people in the US. There are ways to potentially do the structure, even if you have a couple of employees in the US. It's called having a US staffing company. Again, everything has to be
Yeah.
incurring outside the US. You as a manager of the company, the CEO, the corporate, the C-level team, the managers, they all have to be outside the US. But if you have, I don't know, like a couple random employees in the US, we could potentially do the structure, and you do a US staffing company.
Yeah.
And then you transfer money from this offshore company to the US company to pay the salaries in the US, and then that US staffing company does pay some tax in the US, so we're sort of keeping it fair. The other, the final big point is, let's say somebody has, they love this concept, have a SaaS company or technology company. You have, pre-existing IP, you have a software, et cetera. It's all based in a US company. And you're like, this sounds awesome. I just want to switch everything offshore. That's great. We could totally do that. But if you've been in business for a while and you have a very successful business and it's an IP, software related business, you're not a software development company. You have a software, like a SaaS company.
IP, yeah.
Then we have to move it outside of the US, which means you have to sell your IP from the US company to this foreign company that we set up.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to pay a little tax on that. You have to pay a capital gain. We have to value the IP, and there has to be a capital gain.
So it's a one-time capital gain.
It's a one-time capital gain. It's sort of like,
and then you're good to go for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
it's same deal,
one of those
right?
things you're paying a bit upfront essentially for the
Right.
long-term potential tax savings.
Exactly.
Long-term, actual.
It's very similar to an exit tax, like I mentioned before he came on, is you pay a one-time. Right. If you guys pay an exit tax, fine. You pay a one-time exit tax.
Mm-hmm.
And most of you don't need to do it unless you're 7-figure net worth people, but fine, you pay it. Yeah. And then you'll never pay it ever again. Right.
Exactly. So, again, just to sort of reiterate the structure for people, in different visualizations, you have a U.S. holding company, U.S. C Corp. That is what we're doing. We're holding, again, investments in it, right? So rather than take out all the money from the company as a dividend and pay extra tax, you're achieving this level of tax deferral. You're having a U.S. brokerage account in the C Corp. You're having, real estate in the U.S., abroad, et cetera. And then again, underneath it, you're having this British Virgin Island operating company, and that's what you're paying yourself, your employees, your operating expenses, et cetera. Just to get into like a little bit of other, BVI advantages of BVI holding especially for like the non-US owners, to sort of give some further color there. Again, I mean, it's easy to sort of restructure from a non-US person into a BVI, right? You could sort of do like this stock trade, et cetera. Exchange like your US stock for a BVI company stock for non-US owners. BVI is great for, potentially like angel and VC investing, right? So if you're like, looking to fundraise, potentially a BVI company could be good. Sometimes Cayman is better, but again, we see a lot of BVI companies that are these type of holding companies, right? They're holding US stock portfolios. They're holding real estate around the world.
Yep.
And there's a reason for that. I mean, it's just very flexible to have this, to have this BVI company to do that. And it's, again, the compliance cost in the BVI is a lot lower than, many other of these type of jurisdictions around the world.
Now, really quick question about like real estate. If you are if you're a U.S. citizen and we follow the structure, would it be better to have the real estate under the C Corp at the top of the structure or under the BVI, or does it matter?
The C Corp.
That's what I thought. So if you're a non-American, you'd want it in the BVI?
That's correct.
Yeah. Got it. So do you guys hear that? So this would work based on American and non-American. So if you're an American, You wouldn't have it the BVI. It would be an asset of the C corp at the top of the structure. If you're not American, it would be actually in the BVI.
Correct.
Yeah,
that's
cool.
correct. Again, a few more advantages of BVI company for non-Americans or even Americans too to sort of see. It's easier to give sort of employees equity and stock options. Shifts entrepreneurs from personal liability. That sort of goes on the asset protection side. Again, if you have a foreign investor, sometimes they don't want to deal with the U.S. because they don't have a tax ID number in the U.S. and things like that. So they like to invest via BVI, so they don't have to do the U.S. filings. Again, no tax to U.S. non-U.S. shareholders, right? I mean, because BVI is a no tax jurisdiction. So, I sort of mentioned it before. There are VC firms that will invest via BVI, but most do prefer Cayman. So there is an advantage of Cayman there. And I mean, I would say Cayman. I think the big difference is Cayman's a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, isn't Cayman a lot more expensive than BVI?
A lot more expensive. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so listen, I only recommend if you're like a startup and you're like, hey, I'm going to go to pitch Silicon Valley, then I would say do Cayman. Before like more of like the day-to-day type of stuff that we're talking about, international entrepreneur or holding company for this stuff, BVI.
So Cayman, you're paying for the name. Is that kind of what you're doing?
You're paying for the name. There are more compliance requirements in Cayman.
Oh, okay.
But that's why the VC firms like it, because there's more compliance requirements.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. That's why it's more expensive, and BVI. I mean, again, I'm here to I just speak the truth, really. You know what I mean? And so, again, it's a great jurisdiction. Banking, and this is not just BVI. This is a lot of these things. There are some banks. We do a lot of stuff in St. Lucia. There's an Airwalks, which is an online bank, and again, this is why we do this BVI owning a Wyoming LLC structure for people, because then you're getting sort of a stopgap. You're getting access to a BVI banking solution and a U.S. banking solution, right? And so that's why we do that. Again, reputation. I don't think BVI has a bad reputation, but sometimes if you're looking at like Malta or Luxembourg, they're sort of European, so they you could argue that Luxembourg has a better reputation. But again, there are other drawbacks. Super expensive. Hong Kong is audit. You have to do a lot more audit and compliance. Same thing with Cayman. Same thing with a lot of other places. So, I've done this for over 10 years, and I've actually dealt with. I think I've opened up of all those jurisdictions that I listed in like one of the first slides. We've worked with all of them. Like I've at least opened up one company in each of them, and that's why we've picked the BVI, because it really just has the best solution as far as ease of business and the goals that we're trying to achieve for our type of client. So let's go into sort of the pricing and whatnot for working with everybody on this. Again, our offer is a package that we've actually really just done this for your clients, Caleb. And it's sort of an all-inclusive structure, or offer solution, if you will. And, it includes the full structure of Wyoming C Corp owning a BVI company, and it owns the LLC. We're helping with the bank accounts for the C Corp and the LLC. We're doing all of the employment agreements, operating agreements, everything that you need sort of to operate and to present yourself to any employees or bank account openings and just sort of setting that up. And then also really just answering your questions regarding the setup, the maintenance throughout the year. So really just the full hand-holding of this process, right? Because, I mean, as you see, this process is not easy. Not a lot of people do it, candidly.
And
And
you've got a pretty big team too. Don't you have like
yeah,
20, 30 people? You got a lot of people.
actually we
Or
have
more people.
44.
Oh my God, you're
Um,
higher than what? All right. You're bigger than
yeah.
me. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean,
Good.
again, everyone, we sort of different people have different roles. We have the, the accounting team, right? They're the tax compliance team, right? That works with the people that do the 5471s. We have this team that is only focused on doing this structure. We have a team that handles bookkeeping, which actually I should just mention is an important facet of doing the structure.
Yes.
You want to have good books.
Yes.
Again, going back into the compliance side of this.
That's right.
We need to do income statement, balance sheet, so it's important. I think if you're at a certain level anyway, candidly, as a successful business owner, you want to just, you don't want to spend your own time doing books. Your time is way more important. And second,
Yeah. First
you
thing
want
out
to, yeah. And you want to just be able to know, each month, if not each week, how your business is doing. Right. What's growing, what's not, what was an outlier this month. And so I just feel like a lot of people kind of like look at bookkeeping, and listen, it is a cost for sure, but extract value from that by knowing your business and also freeing up your time. So anyway, the bookkeeping is important too with this structure.
So let me comment really quick for you guys. This is the same thing I talk about when I talk about Dubai stuff. The price itself is not relevant. What is relevant, and I just mentioned this a few minutes ago, is how much you would save if you did this. So if you would save, let's say you would save, worst case, let's say you would break even on the 7,500 the first year. The next year you're at a profit of 7,500.
Yeah.
So the price doesn't matter. All it matters is you just map out in your head what he just did a few minutes ago, what you currently make, what you're currently paying taxes. If you save anywhere near that, then you're dumb to not do something like this. It doesn't make any sense to not do this, honestly.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter what the price is. The price could be double or triple depending on how much taxes you pay. And there's a percentage of you, my audience, talk to many of you, who are making good money right now.
Yeah.
And you're paying a lot of money in tax. And there's some of you who make right at about the 140K, 120K, 100K. You're paying that too. So
yeah.
That's how you make those kind of decisions. That's how I made the Dubai decisions. I don't care how much it is. How much am I going to save? How much does it cost? How much do I save? And then it's not just this year, for the rest of my life, or at least 10 years.
Yeah.
How much do I stand to save? Yeah.
I'm just going to bring up a few other points too. Again, I mean, the tax thing obviously is the biggest thing here, but some of the things I like to, like I said, I like to give the full picture to people. I really, my thing is I set up these structures if it's like right for you, and so again, looking at like banking and payment processing, asset protection, like I said, is super, super important. Thinking about, your nest egg and retirement savings and investment options. And, I bring this up because this is obviously part of the package and part of what we help people think through, with this structure and really anything when we do the tax optimization. Right. And so, the other thing that I'm going to like present is this sort of consultation, because, like I said, I only work with people that, we know that we're going to help them save taxes and we know that it's a right fit. And we sort of looked at this presentation as like, hey, you know what? I want to give people as much information as they can to make the right decision and just understand, how these structures work really. And so a lot of times, before we jump into like, making that investment, right? The $7,500 investment, which is of course like, it's money, right? And also just really analyzing each person's specific situation. We do a 60-minute consultation. And this consultation is either going to be with me or we have two other structuring experts on the team, two other managers. And so, this $400 consultation actually is applied to the cost of the 7,500. So then you only pay the difference of 7,100. So it's sort of, again, it's a way to, dip your feet in the water / just know, really help us help us help you quantify over the phone this that this investment is going to save you money over the years.
And you'll make money on that call. If you get Vincenzo for an hour, trust me, you'll make money. You'll save a lot of money in tax.
That's true.
You will.
No, I mean, really, like that. I say this to everybody, which is like, listen, if you don't think you derive value, like, let me know. I mean, I really do feel like it's just such an important sort of energy, knowledge exchange to do these calls. And I really want people to walk away. And I don't think anyone has ever not walked away and be like, wow, like that. I learned something, I saved something. And so that's why we have these calls.
So the link for those of you listening hey, can you go back one? Because some people are listening to the podcast. So if you're listening to the podcast, it's Global Expat Advisors, just how you spell it out, globalexpatadvisors.com /BVI-setup. If you want to take a look at this, and I recommend you do, if you're going to save money in taxes, you're dumb not to do this. globalexpatadvisors.com /BVI-setup and BVI-setup. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Or you could scan the code.
Cool. If you're watching the video, you can scan the QR code. I have not done that. That's very clever. I got to start using the QR codes more.
Yeah, right.
How long can you hang out for questions? I want to respect your time.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's see. I mean, I think at least 15 minutes.
Okay, that's
maybe
plenty.
Even a little bit more, but yeah.
All right,
let's go.
I'll curate the questions here. So those of you who asked questions earlier that I couldn't answer, go ahead and repeat your question. I'm going to scroll up a little bit here, and we'll get to as many as we can. Let's see. If I'm following Five Flags and have a BVI company and an offshore account, is there any substantial advantage in having a BVI property, beach house, as a bolt hole? I'm a UK citizen.
You're saying, sorry, if he sets up the BVI company.
So if he's a UK citizen, he wants a BVI property like a beach house as a bolt hole, as a backup plan for him. Is there a substantial advantage to having a beach house under his BVI property, under his BVI? I think is what he's asking.
Yeah, no. I can't say substantial advantage, but I would say that it sort of adds to the fact that you have a base in the BVI, et cetera. I mean, it's a UK person, so it's tough if they domiciled in the UK, where they domiciled. It's a little bit of I would need a little more specifics.
This goes back to what I was talking about earlier in this podcast about where you live. Right.
Yeah.
Most of the year. Right.
But there's something. Listen, if you're going to have like if you're going to have a if you want a house on the BVI, et cetera, has a backup and so forth, then you could sort of say that's, your office in the BVI, right? So it could be like a justifiable business reason to do it and so on and so forth. So I'd probably have to, I would have to know a little bit more of the person's complete information, really like comment a lot further, but I think it could be an advantage, yes.
Okay. Does it make sense to have a BVI own a U.S. LLCs and then have the LLC profits get transferred to the BVI, or is it better to just have the LLCs pay their profits to the BVI in exchange for services? I know the answer to that, but I'll let you answer. Does that question make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I generally like to just have everything under one structure. Do you know what I mean? I don't like. Yeah, right. It's a pass. So I don't, when you're like, oh, transfer profits, et cetera. I mean, there are sometimes ways to do that, and I sort of alluded to that. If you have a staffing company, you have to pay one or the other, but that gets into a few, you want to get technical, like it's called related party transactions. When you have two entities that have the same exact owner, okay, well, what percentage should be transferred, et cetera. So again, I think it just gets a little messier. And you should just have everything under one structure.
He's right, because I've done it both ways. It's better to have everything under one. It's a lot easier. That's correct. Yeah,
100%.
Someone's saying, I guess this only works if your salary paid to you by the corp is non-taxable in the country you live in. For example, if I live in Canada, my salary from the U.S. company would be taxable as income in Canada? ?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very fair point. I think that it does, sort of alluding to what you just said too, Caleb. Like it's about your residency, and
Where
so
you
to your
live.
point,
You're right.
if you're a tax resident in Canada, getting paid a salary from whether it's a BVI company, U.S. company,
Right.
etc., it could be taxable in Canada.
None of this changes what I said at the very beginning of this before he came on, where if you spend most of the year in a high tax country,
Yeah,
you're still going to pay taxes, at least income tax, personal income tax in that high tax country. Get
correct.
the hell out.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's true.
Yeah, man. Yeah. All right. For this structure, if you're still US based but are employed by the BVI corporation at $42K a year, can you pull dividends from the C Corp at 0% tax before they'd be qualified dividends? I'm pretty sure the answer is no, correct?
First off, if you're living in the States, this structure is not the best for you, right? Because again, you're managing the company from the U.S. I mean, there's potentially some flexibility there. If let's say you had a team outside the U.S. that's really managing it, and you are sort of like a board of director sort of person, then it could work. But I want to be very clear: this structure really is designed for people who are living outside the United States. So the management is taking place outside the U.S. I think to the individual's other question on taking a so then you'd maybe take a salary from the C Corp, and then to your point, you could take a dividend from the C Corp, and that is a qualified dividend, right? So, and that's, I think, an important point to sort of reiterate.
Yep.
Maybe I wasn't very clear, which is, you don't take the dividend from the BVI company. The money actually goes to the C Corp, and then you take the dividend from the C Corp. And the reason is because a dividend from a C Corp is taxed at a lower dividend rate, called a qualified dividend.
So if you are in, really quick, this is my question, because a lot of people might be thinking this. So if you are in the US or Canada, or let's say UK, year round, you're based there. You're not going to get, let's maybe focus on US. You're not going to get a hell of a lot of tax advantages. You're going to get some other advantages like asset protection potentially, but you're not going to get a lot of tax. You might get some, but not a lot. Is that an accurate statement?
By doing what now?
If you're based in the US and you do this structure,
Yeah,
you're not going to get a hell of a lot of tax advantages, but you're going to get other like asset protection advantages.
asset protection advantages, etc.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
So if you guys are in the base of the US, you have no plans leaving anytime soon. This would be more, and you did this would be much more of an asset protection play than a tax play.
That's correct.
Okay. So there's a percentage of you I know who are in the US, Canada, UK, Australia right now, and you're planning to leave in the next year or two or three, and you're already making, if you're making the kind of money where this would save you money, then yes, get this done now. So as soon as you move, you're done. I mean, I had to do, Vincenzo knows this. Once I moved, I still had a bunch of shit I had to do. It's a hassle. I was doing some of that stuff today. So you don't want to do that. You want to get this done now. So when you get on that plane and leave, you're done and you're set. You're good to go. Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. At least two people have asked, can you do a comparison pro and con between using this as a BVI versus using the Dubai Free Zone Company, which is what I've done? What are the pros and cons, if you're to summarize?
I would summarize the pros and cons of the following. BVI has less compliance. It's, just a cheaper structure, or, it's just, it's more economical, right? You don't have to deal with like the residency stuff. And, I Caleb, you could speak more than I can to Dubai, but, again, the residency stuff. I think Dubai has better access to banking, right? Although banking can be, it's difficult to sometimes open bank accounts in Dubai, but I will say that the banking in Dubai is better than the bank account access to the BVI, at least, at a lower level, like at a lower, deposit threshold, So, but you don't have to deal with like flying to Dubai a lot to get the residency and renew the residency and so forth. Dubai, I know, is sort of in the process of changing some of its tax laws. And so, there's a risk that there might be some more tax in Dubai than the BVI.
Accurate. Everything you said is pretty much accurate. The banks are better in Dubai than BVI. You also get residency with your corporation in Dubai. You don't get residency at BVI, but it is more money. And if you want to maintain the residency, you got to come to Dubai twice a year. And then there's that potentially 9% corporate tax if your profit is more than 100. Your profit is more than 100,000 on the corporation a year, 103,000, something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
There's a pro and con. Let's see. Thoughts on a U.S. single member LLC for non-U.S. So those of you asking about non-U.S. citizens, so if you've already asked, Vincenzo's coming back in a few weeks, and we're going to totally address you guys. So just hang tight. We're going to have a whole section just for you non-Americans on what you guys can do. So we'll have him back. If no management of the companies can be done in the U.S., can I, as a U.S.-based owner, do a staffing company deal and still benefit from this structure? Do you understand that question? I kind of understand it.
A U.S.-based owner, you're saying, and you're doing the staffing company?
Yes. Same answer as before, right?
Yeah, I mean, the same answer. It sort of depends. I think, again, you have to be able to show that you have management and things being taken place outside the United States.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't Cayman introduce crazy overreaching rules about audits, minimum cash reserves, ability to freeze bank accounts versus Bermuda, which cut and pasted Delaware laws? You know anything about that?
I mean, I don't know.
I think some of that's BS. I think there's some truth and some BS in there.
I was going to say that. I think there's truth.
A mix of both.
They do. I mean, Cayman does have more stringent compliance laws. That's why the venture capital firms prefer Cayman. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, I think that it does have. That's the reason. So, I mean, and it is sort of. They did actually take a lot of the stuff from Delaware. That's also very true. And that's why the VCs like it again. But I think Cayman's still a good option. I mean, I'm not sure about the seizures and this and that, so I can't comment on that. I'll just comment on the fact that there is more compliance, there's more cost with Cayman, but again, for dealing with outside investors, particularly in the VC world, Cayman is better.
Rewind your slides one so that link is up on the screen in case people join late. Yeah, that's perfect. Here's a question that is about capital gains, which I usually have trouble answering.
Yeah.
So if you know this, so I am a U.S. citizen living full-time in the U.S. How can I reduce my capital gains taxes by getting a tax residency in Dubai or Paraguay? I have permanent residence in Paraguay.
You're a U.S. citizen living in the United States?
Right. So nothing if you stay in the U.S., right?
So the problem with capital gains is that that's like one area there where there really isn't a lot to be done. Because the U.S. tax on worldwide income and capital gains, essentially, even in this sort of structure, would be not applicable. So the only there's three. I mean, if you're talking about capital gains from like stock trading, et cetera, then there's really only three areas of that you could save. One is if you move to Puerto Rico, right? Puerto Rico has a very unique.
As an American.
Yeah, as an American. Has very unique Puerto Rico tax advantages under Act 60. So you would actually not be taxed on capital gains in Puerto Rico or in the U.S. if you live in Puerto Rico at least 6 months out of the year. That's or you renounce your U.S. citizenship. That's another way to not pay U.S. capital gains tax.
Hint, hint.
Or you potentially, if you have a non-U.S. spouse, you could, gift it to the spouse and they could sell it.
Okay. That's interesting. I've heard of that. All right.
Yeah.
But outside those three, if you're an American, you're kind of screwed on capital gains, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So worst case scenario, if you're an American, depending on how much your net worth is, you can renounce. You might have to pay an exit tax if you're worth more than, what is it, 2 or 3 million, something like that?
$2 million.
$2 million. All right. So if your net worth is more than $2 million, you pay an exit tax one time, and then from then on, you don't have to worry about capital gains the rest of your life. But that's an extreme step that most of you aren't going to take. I understand.
Right.
Okay. Let's do a few more questions.
I mean, just on the renunciation, there's also a way to, like, if let's say you're worth $5 million, you could gift some of the assets, et cetera, to get it under the $2 million. So there are there are planning opportunities when it comes to renunciation. We've done hundreds of renunciations. So if anyone has any questions,
talk to Vincenzo if you guys or any of you are looking at renouncing, because there's a percentage of you that are, you Americans with money.
You could do the same. You could do, if you actually do want to renounce, you could do the same link over there, even though it says BVI setup, it'll route to me and the two people that were also familiar with renunciation.
Just make sure you have another passport before you renounce, please. You don't want to be passportless. Yeah,
that's true.
That's the tricky part. Renouncing is actually not as hard. It's getting those other passports.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what I'm working on. I plan on to move to the Bahamas in a year or two. I'm setting up a new consulting business now and plan to register it as an LLC in Nevada. Does it make sense to register in the Bahamas? So he's planning on moving to the Bahamas in a year or two.
Yeah, you should definitely register in the Bahamas.
That's what I figured. Yeah. Will this setup work for the initial setup of a BVI-based hedge fund? Basically, would this work for any business based in BVI? That question doesn't make sense, but do you understand what he's asking?
Yeah, I mean, I think a BVI-based hedge fund, I think that, well, funds are usually a little bit different, right? I mean, you could definitely do a BVI-based hedge fund, but you could have.
But would it be owned? Would it be better for him to own that to do the hedge fund and at the C Corp level at the top? Or does it matter?
No, what you would do is you would probably have this structure would be good for like the management company, right? So when you have a fund, you usually have this separate management company. All the funds, usually how it works is just like, if you collect outside money, it's 2 and 20, right? 2% management fee every year, and then 20% of like the upside of the capital gains. And so that 2% management fee from the fund could go into a structure like this, and and get a lower tax, and then you could have the BVI sort of like the fund, like a partnership, be sort of where the fund money is located.
He's also asking, can the corporation cover many services and products from marketing to the customer support to the hedge fund, which you kind of just answered?
Yeah, I mean, it could support multiple services. If you have multiple revenue streams from like the said management company or whatever, then yeah, do this as a structure for that company for sure.
U.S. citizen living abroad. I have 2 K1s and income property. Can I save any money? Yeah, but I'll let Vincenzo answer. The answer yes, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you
living abroad,
if you're living abroad, I mean, you could certainly save a lot of money when it comes to.
Yeah, man, you should do this unless you've already done some other structure like it. Yeah, hell yeah. That's what this is for. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How well does this work with being a Dubai personal tax resident, for example? That's a good question. So if I was living here in Dubai as a tax resident here most of the year, how would that work if I did it? Would it be worth or not?
I mean, I think you could do it. I mean, I think obviously, my inclination, of course, would be like if you're living in Dubai, just go with the Dubai structure.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
I don't know how. I'm curious how Dubai would view like a, owning a BVI structure in there, while being a tax resident. So I feel that it's easier just to put Dubai structure.
Yeah. And you'd have access. And if you're in Dubai, you have access to all the good banks here. It's just for ease of life, it'd be easier. Unless you spend a lot of time in BVI, maybe. Other than that, that's kind of what I was thinking. Yeah. How could a U.S. swing trader reduce his short-term capital gains? Well, he kind of already answered that.
Yeah.
You can't really do much. Yeah.
Move to Puerto Rico or renounce.
Right. Move to Puerto Rico. Right. I always forget that option. I didn't realize that I got applied to capital gains. That's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't realize
it's great.
Yeah. So you pay really quick. That works. So you pay 0 capital gains, or you pay reduced capital? You pay 4%? Oh, you pay 0. Okay.
0 capital gains. Yeah.
All right. Let me see more questions we have here regarding what he talked about. I'm skipping over the ones. When he leaves, I'll rewind and answer some of your questions that are outside this topic, and then we'll wrap this up. Would the LLC need to be from Wyoming? I was told to form it in the state where I live and work, so it's Arizona. Doesn't matter which state. That's a good question.
A good question. Again, first off, because this structure is really for people living outside the U.S., so they don't have this sort of applicability of, should I foreman in the state that I live, right? Because they don't live in the U.S. I do agree with the fact that if you are living in said state, you need to register in that state somehow, right? So,
And why is that? What's the reasoning behind that?
because you're doing business in that state by like living in that state. So
I see.
you could still do a Wyoming entity, and if you live in Arizona, you would have to register that Wyoming business as a business doing, as a business doing commerce or business in Arizona, right? So you still would have to file like Arizona taxes, etc. I'll say like this: sometimes when I do, like, let's say somebody living in California, which is a very greedy, high tax state, and we know they're going to leave California. And we're, kind of like we were talking about before, people that are like, they know that they're going to leave. So, hey, let's just set it up now. So then, when you do get on that plane, it's like a switch of a button and you just turn it on like a light switch. So in those cases, I will just open again in Wyoming, even though I live in California, because I know they're going to leave. As opposed to saying, oh, I live in California, let me do a California. But then when you leave, then you still have ties to California because you have a California company. So it's sort of, you're missing the point.
Yeah. All right. 2 or 3 more questions. Any opinion on Panama Private Interest Foundation structure, which I'm unfamiliar with?
So Panama foundations could be viewed as either a trust or a foreign company. So I think it really depends on sort of how the entity is structured, whether it's viewed as a trust or the sort of structure. I mean, I'll say like this: we have opened in Panama before. It takes a while there. It takes a while with the banking and so forth.
Yes, I can speak to that. Yeah, it's a mess.
We don't really recommend Panama anymore. I did a few.
Neither do I.
It was really just a pain, candidly.
No, you're exactly right. I did a whole video about that about 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Okay. Yeah, I think all the lawyers are trying to really oversell Panama a bit, and
yeah, it's unfortunate.
You have to really be wary of Panama, especially as an American.
Yeah, it's a cool place to live and hang out, but don't base any of your stuff in Panama. It's a mess. I mean, go watch the video I did 2 or 3 years ago on why I don't recommend Panama anymore. It's unfortunate too. It sucks because it's a great place.
Yeah, that's true.
Why is the Wyoming C Corp needed? Well, that's a good question, but I think I know the answer. Couldn't the BVI Corp own the Wyoming LLC to reduce self-employment tax? I think he's referring to LLCS, but I'm not sure.
No, he's referring to the LLC, right? Because to the point of the structure of this, sort of the C Corp owns the BVI, that owns the LLC, right? So, get the BVI LLC stuff, right? So why is the C Corp on top? Great question. 2 reasons. One is technically because the C Corp is what gives you the reduction to the 10.5%, guilty tax.
Gives you that 50% discount on the tax that you pay.
Yeah.
From the C. Right.
And then the other point is that in order to take the dividend out, right? If you want to take over the 120K salary, you need to take a dividend out. And if you take a dividend from the BVI, that's ordinary income.
Oh,
if you take a dividend from the C Corp on top of that, then it's qualified dividend and it's lower.
Right. I always forget about that. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I want to set up a real estate syndication fund. Would BVI make sense for that?
It really depends on where you're investing in real estate and so forth,
and where he lives, right?
And where you live, etc.
Yeah. So same kind of thing as before. Where do you live? Where are you based on? Where is this all occurring?
Yeah, that's why, that's why the consultation I think is helpful, because we really could drill down on the facts very, very simply. And
you need to have a consultation with him. That's the exact kind of scenario that you need help with.
Yeah, correct.
Yep. All right. Last question. This is a perfect one. Are you mainly focused on setting up BVI corporations, or can you set up at other places too, Vincenzo?
We could set up in a lot of other places.
That entire slide he showed to begin this, those who came in late, you can watch the replay. He listed like 20 different places. You can
I'll do it just so everyone sees it.
Yeah, pull it back up. Yeah, that one. There you go.
You know,
Plus
we
more than
literally,
this.
actually,
There's more. That's why the dot. There's more than that. So yes,
There's
he
more
can.
than that.
He did the whole world. Yeah,
So we could handle all that we've done in all these countries. A few
just
other
some
ones.
are better than others. Like for example, Panama's on there, but we don't recommend Panama. And Cayman's on
Exactly.
there, but we talk about why that you may or may not want that. Yeah, there's pros and cons all these places.
Correct. Cook Islands is another one. Yeah, so we can handle
Cook
that.
Islands, right? Yeah. Right.
You know,
so there you go. So the answer is yes. Yeah. So I'm going to say this one more time. globalexpatadvisors.com/BVI-setup. If you want if you want in on the BVI, or if you want to do, so they can do a consultation there as well. They can do everything there.
Yep. Correct.
Okay, great. So it's all this. So you want to do consultation, fine. If you want in on the full BVI, and again, I'm going to say it one last time. All you do is you sit down and kind of pencil out with a calculator or a spreadsheet the taxes you typically pay in a year.
Yeah.
And if you pay anywhere near that amount, then $7,500, dude, you should do this right now, especially if you don't live in the US or you're in the US, but you're planning on leaving like in the next year or two soon. And I know a lot of you are in that category. This is, again, the same exact logic I use for my Dubai stuff. I don't care how much it is. I care about how much I'm saving based on my lifestyle. Yeah. And there should be more motivation for those of you who are still in the United States and Canada and Australia and New Zealand and Western Europe to get the hell out and pay less taxes and live more free and be more happy. Yes.
100%. We're living proof.
Yep. Correct. Thank you very much. This has been great. This has been fantastic.
Thank you. Good to see you, Caleb. Talk soon.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Bye. All right. I will answer a few questions that were outside of that, and then I will wrap this up. He's another great example of someone who lives this life, and he's got some really cool structures in place that I didn't even know about when I was talking. I said, wait a minute, what are you doing? Especially his real estate shit. I'm like, oh my God. Wait. I'm taking notes. All right, let's do a few questions and then we will wrap this up. Let's see here. Where were those questions I saw that were not related to this? Damn. Well, if I didn't get your question, you can retype it. I thought there was. Why am I not seeing them now? Shit, I'm not seeing them. That's weird. Maybe it's just one or two. Starting a B2B sales agency where agency generate new customers and orders for some contract manufacturers or so-called machine parts that produces CNC parts, injection molded 3D parts. What do you think? I think that sounds very complicated. Let me try this again. A sales agency where you generate new customers and orders. Oh, I see. For subcontracting manufacturers. I would not do that with any manufacturers in the U.S. Manufacturing is going away in the U.S. So as long as it's outside the U.S., I think it's fine. I would not do anything manufacturing related. In the 90 business that we talk about, don't go after any niche that is declining. Manufacturing in the U.S., not a great place to be. Not a great place to be at all. So if it's outside the U.S., I like it. Especially in like Southeast Asia, great. Where manufacturers the rice, even parts of Africa, parts of South America, sure. United States, new. Which VoIP phone app works the best for doing business out of the UAE? So all I do, you just put any VPN you want on your phone and use WhatsApp. It works. I just VPN on my phone whenever I make any calls with WhatsApp on my phone. I've never had a problem, not once. The only weird thing about the UAE, and at some point this will go away, is that when people call you on WhatsApp, this happens all the time. I have to hang up on them, send them a text, say, wait a minute, I have to call you. You can't call me if I'm in the UAE because of the VoIP stuff. So I just hit my VPN, then I call them and it's fine. So you don't have to make this complicated. Let's see here. Where are we here? Would I have to stay 6 months in Puerto Rico to take advantage of the no capital gains? Yes, you would. 6 months, that's the magic number. So that's 183 days. Now, the reason, Caleb, why didn't you do Puerto Rico? Hurricanes. They're constantly smashed by hurricanes. They have power problems. I know Peter Schiff loves it. It is cool. I mean, you get a lot of benefits. You drop all your zero capital gains, and your income taxes go from fucking 50% to like 4%. So it is cool, but you better really like Puerto Rico. It's not the best. And if you're a higher income guy, you'll live in the nicer part of Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is kind of a shithole, but you won't live in the shithole part. But the weather is a problem and the infrastructure is a problem. So that's why I didn't look at that. I also wanted to separate myself from the United States as much as I possibly could, but that's me. So, but it is an option. It does work. Peter Schiff did it. You know. Doesn't guilty only affect guilty aims income as intangible assets such as copyrights, patents? No, that's not my understanding. You should have asked him, but that's not my understanding. No, that is any dividend you pull out as income from the C Corp in a given year. Or like he said, even if you don't pull it out. So no, I'm pretty sure that is incorrect. So if we want to do his structure in the 5 flags model, we would be setting up in country A, which should be a low tax country. Setting up in a country A. Yes, unless you lived in a country. You need to be living in a country A. It doesn't matter where you set it up. You need to be living in a country A. So I have that model, but I'm doing Dubai. So I've talked about this on my Dubai stuff. When I showed you that flow chart of what one of the things I'm doing, sort of. I can't tell you exactly what I'm doing because of legal reasons. So you have a Delaware C Corp, or any C Corp, Wyoming C Corp, anything. It doesn't really matter. You have a C Corp, then you have a foreign-owned corporation, Dubai, Hong Kong, BVI, Panama, although we don't recommend that, any of the places he talked about, then that then owns an LLC in the U.S. Now, what you're saying is, I think what you're asking is if you don't live in the U.S., would your C Corp and the LLC be in another country? No. That'd be kind of a mess. So, but this is what you would do in the U.S. if you're an American or a non-American. So that's this works. And that's very similar to what I'm doing, except instead of BVI, I have a Dubai corporation. And the banks here, he's right. The banks here are very good once you set up the account. Setting up the account in Dubai is a pain in the butt. But once it's set up, the banks are fucking awesome. In Dubai here, I've mentioned this, you can instantaneously send money from your bank account to any other bank account in the UAE, any other bank, instantly for free. It's like Bitcoin. It's badass. And there's a lot of times you can send it outside the country, like instantly with your phone. Instead of doing wire transfers, all this bullshit. The banking here is really good. Once you get the account set up, they're very careful about setting up bank accounts because it's a very free country. So several years ago, there was some money laundering shit going on. And of course, the other countries told them to like crack down on, people setting up bank accounts. But once the account's set up, it's a dream. It's great. I don't have a single problem. Okay. Any more questions? I'll put the link in the chat, and I'll be sure to put the link in the video as well for him. He is one of the top guys in this space, Vincenzo. His company is one of the top companies. I met him through Nomad Capitalist. So Andrew uses him. He's awesome. He's not ridiculously expensive like other people I can name who I won't. Not just Andrew Henderson, but a lot of people. So you can see he's the shit. Highly recommend him. I use him. I learned a lot from him. He's helped me save a lot of money. He's fantastic. Highly recommend. globalexpatadvisors.com/BVI-setup, either for the BVI or the consultation. Cool? Cool. All right. I have to go. I will be seeing you guys if you're interested in the Alpha Male 2.0 stuff on Wednesday. Cool? Cool. Have fun.